At a glance, they looked like an ordinary, happy family. Their hair was wet, as if they'd just had a great time at the water park.
Hello. Please give us a room.
If only their heads, bellies, and hips weren't crushed, and their organs weren't a mess from being squeezed by something like a tire. It was obvious the entire family had died in a horrific accident together. I assigned them to a deluxe room and added an extra bed for the child.
Dad, are we really sleeping at the amusement park this time?
That's right. My dear something, you can finally get to play one more day at the amusement park.
Blood dripped onto the counter, then was reabsorbed into their mashed organs. As the guests headed for the elevator, Jang Hee-woon let out a faint sigh of relief. I lifted a mascot paw and patted his head.
Well done.
Thank you.
Jang Hee-woon bowed his head, then, for some reason, raised his eyes with a bit of sparkle, and started handling his duties with more enthusiasm. I told you not to work too hard. In any case, the process of assigning rooms to various strange guests continued after that. There were more guests than expected. It was as if they had all been waiting for the grand opening, and they all handed over the same kind of currency. I rolled it in my front paw. Colorful plastic coins. These look like pieces from the cheerful theme park board game. Right. They were like the plastic game tokens used in board games. On the front, a strange language. On the back, the theme park logo. Most of them were blue. I decided to keep them. Since it was currency that's being used to pay for the rooms, I figured I'd need them at some point. After sending off 3 or 4 groups, I finally caught my breath. A strange sound started coming from the door, the sound of a balloon rubbing against glass. A magic bunny balloon. Holding a bright red balloon and dragging its feet, it approached me, looked up, and spoke rapidly and precisely.
Hello, I'd like to stay one night. A quiet room, a room no one can find, a room where I can die, please.
I'm sorry, guest, but in our resort, acts that violate public morals are strictly prohibited.
Seriously, you really don't have to work that hard. I hurriedly pulled out an information leaflet I'd kept under the desk and handed it over to the figure in front of me. One so inhuman, it could barely be mistaken for a person anymore.
Flower Golden Resort is a space for happiness. Please refrain from any actions that would make other guests or employees uncomfortable. The mascot determines the standards of happiness.
Dying is my joy, dying is my joy.
It was causing a scene. Violation of resort usage rules. The standard mascots ran over and grabbed the troublesome guest by the arms, dragging them out the door, through the back door. Anyway, I'd protected the resort safely. If I can keep this up, this should work, right? Let's keep enduring. A safe horror story resort filled only with dignity and class. At about the same time, Blue Dream Water Park.
Ooh, we got all the stamps.
Let's get out of here.
The field exploration team employees who had drawn the blue pieces had finished riding all 3 attractions and were ready to leave. They thought it was a piece of cake and that B-rank sushi was easy. Since there were already exploration records for this place, and the rules in Blue Dream Water Park weren't too difficult, they had finished the work comfortably. They went to look for the exit.
Maintenance ongoing.
A sign was posted on the main gate, blocking access.
Where should we go to get out?
Perplexed, but very carefully, they addressed the blue mascot standing beside the gate. The mascot pointed in a direction. They hurried away. Every time they passed a mascot, it raised its hand and pointed them the right way.
Wouldn't it be great if all the other darknesses were something?
As the 2 snickered, the lizard mask employee quietly watched his surroundings and followed. The path gradually led them to the outskirts, into a beautiful garden. This looked newly built, smelling like fresh paint. And at the end of the garden path, there was a gate. Beyond the gate, dazzling lights could be seen. At the end of a line of golden streetlights, there was a huge, gorgeous hotel-like building shining brilliantly. The field exploration team members instinctively realized that this wasn't in the previous explorations. The blue mascot standing next to the gate quietly watched them, then held something out.
Special lottery event.
It was a board with thick, small slips of paper attached, covering their contents. The kind where you peel off a slip to see what's inside. The employees gulped.
Yeah, should be fine. This area was supposed to be a good place, so maybe they could get a useful item. That'd be a huge gain. Might as well take a shot at it.
They figured they must be lucky, since they'd managed to avoid that monstrous security team employee today. And besides, they'd be leaving soon anyway. In the end, unable to resist their greed, they reached out and peeled off slips. And the one standing at the very back quietly reached out and peeled a slip off the board. Lee Jae-hyun looked up and met the gaze of the Blue Dragon mascot. They had once faced each other at Death Lane, but the mascot didn't stop him from taking part in the lottery. So Lee Jae-hyun reached out and drew a slip. He accepted the prize that the mascot handed him. It was a coupon that looked like a printed ticket.
Deluxe Room 1-1, Night Accommodation Voucher. Experience review required.
He looked up at the Flower Golden Resort, its golden lights shining brilliantly. The first day of resort operations is proceeding smoothly. Though inside the mascot suit, I was sweating cold bullets. There are just too many problem guests. To be precise, they're not just problem guests, but the sort of terrifying, ominous beings you'd expect to see in a horror movie. 1 out of every 3 guests was like that.
Please give me room 404. It absolutely has to be room 404, and never, ever come looking for me.
Let's burn to death together.
There sure are a lot of elevators here. Hee 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 hee.
And I'm starting to realize that it's honestly easier when they just make it this obvious. Calls that are hung up abruptly, pretending to desperately ask for help, and then bursting out in wild laughter when you point out something strange, and bizarre, incomprehensible tales of a religious judgment day that no human could understand. This is just a Neapolitan ghost story hotel. Save me, I'm going to lose it. Still, the only consolation is that today is almost over. It looks like today's check-ins will soon be finished. Let's check the result of the first day's opening after business ends. Looks like the theme park is nearing closing time too. Except for the night shift, the resort seems to close together with the theme park. Far outside the window, fireworks were going off. It seemed like the Red Zone, the Magic Bunny Zone, had some horrific and fun parade, because I could hear guests gossiping in disappointment about having missed it. That insane Red Zone, I guess it's still operating just fine. For once, I'm glad mascots can't leave their own zones. And I realized something else. A significant number of these problematic guests coming to the resort had spent most of their time in the Magic Bunny Zone. For example, even now...
Excuse me, I don't have eyes, and if I don't have eyes, I can't close my eyes, so I can't sleep, so there's no point in renting a room. Give me eyes. Eyes.
One moment. Allow me to check our inventory.
You have some. You have them, don't you? You're holding on to them.
I barely managed to rescue Jang Hyun, who was about to have his eyeballs yanked out, and chase that horrifying thing out the front door. That thing, with empty eye sockets blinking all over its body, wailed as it was forced out by a standard mascot's intimidation. The employee wearing the Harvest Mouse mask, working as a cleaner, was hunched up in a corner while half-heartedly sweeping as if wishing he could disappear from this place. It made sense. If I weren't wearing the mascot suit, I might have fainted too. Can't I spot them ahead of time and just refuse them entry? I wanted to kick all the troublemakers out before they even made it inside. 3 more provisions had already been added to the staff work regulations because of this. As I was considering what method to use during a lull in check-in guests, a guest burst through the glass door. No, maybe it wasn't a guest. A field exploration team employee wearing a weasel mask spotted the ladybug-masked employee sitting at the room service call desk and sprinted over, clinging to him desperately.
Assistant manager, please save me. I tried to go out through the gate, but I can't get out.
Excuse me? I'm not sure what you mean.
No matter what I do, I can't leave. I can't go back into the blue zone either. I was told my ride ticket has already been used. Please save me. Please, please.
I apologize, dear guest. I'm not a concierge, so if you have questions about the exit, please inquire at the front desk over there.
The weasel-masked employee stiffened, creaked as he turned his head, and met my eyes. Don't worry, I'm an ally. But the weasel-masked staff tried to turn and run out the glass doors. No, if you do that, where do you plan to sleep? I mean, how did you even make it over here in the first place? Did you cross the gate without getting your ticket stamped? Just then, a guest entering the lobby grabbed hold of the fleeing weasel-masked employee. It's Section Chief Lee Jae-hyun. Ah, no. Why is the squad leader here instead of leaving? Dragging the sobbing staff by the scruff of the neck, Section Chief Lee Jae-hyun strode up to the front desk and looked straight at me before greeting me. He held out something like a small rectangular paper badge. It was a lodging coupon.
The Blue Dream Water Park mascot is handing them out as event prizes.
Why would it do something like that? No. More importantly, was it even allowed to do that without permission? After sending everyone off, I stayed in the lobby alone for a moment before returning to the administrator's office. I considered taking off the mascot suit for a second, but I held back, worried that I might lose my mascot status if I did. And, strangely enough, the suit is starting to feel more and more comfortable. It's like being wrapped in a down comforter. It's a bit heavy and stuffy, but bearable. In the end, I sat down at my office desk and picked up my pen. It was time to settle today's operations.
Satisfied guests. Tallying revenue. Cheerful coins X51.
Are those the plastic tokens I got as payment? I asked a standard mascot to bring the coins to the office. Sure enough, there were 51. And if this is based on a board game, coins like these usually have a use somewhere. Should I try buying resort supplies with cheerful coins? Alternatively, it may be possible to upgrade or remodel resort facilities. I decided I'd choose whichever option would help operations the most. I crossed my arms. It was a bit awkward, but I managed. If I want to make this resort safe, I really need to block those problem guests ahead of time. So what method would be the most effective? If I can do some changes to the resort, then it's actually a simple matter. Just make it so they can't come in. I started adding another item under the existing resort rules.
2. For the peaceful rest of all guests, all disruptive behavior is prohibited within the resort. All amenities, welcome gifts, and services are provided immediately upon check-in. After that, you can enjoy a dignified and peaceful rest in your room, without disturbance from anyone. Strict social distancing!
It's like acting like one of those clothing stores where not soliciting customers is the main selling point. With that, I can naturally add this line.
If you disturb the peaceful rest of other guests, your room stay may be canceled.
But this is a resort attached to a theme park, saying, "You've had plenty of fun at the amusement park, so now it's time to get a good rest," is plausible enough. But if I'm not careful, there might be lots of complaints about lack of service or boredom. I need to pay attention to guest satisfaction too, since adding new facilities and earning more stamps to escape depends on it. I decided to use cheerful coins to purchase the highest quality amenities and welcome gifts. In addition, I'll replace all the bedding in the guest rooms with the very best. I'm going with the freebie meta. Facility investment? That's for mascots who plan to run this place long term. For a mascot like me who just wants to milk guest satisfaction as much as possible and bail, it's irrelevant. Let's just spend all the game money. But where am I supposed to find more staff, seriously? Even the people who used coupons to check in today are all going to run away tomorrow unless they're crazy. There's no answer. For now, I'll just focus on picking out supplies. And so, the night shift hours passed by. Less than an hour before Kim Soleum's frenzied shopping spree for supplies, Lee Jae-hyun took the antique wooden elevator up in Flower Golden Resort and was assigned a room on the 3rd floor. The standard mascot who'd guided him opened the door for him, then waved a few times in a somewhat friendly manner before politely disappearing. And so he was left alone in the room. As is often the case with hotel-style accommodations, it was a bit narrow but fitting for a theme park. It was a Baroque-style, atmospheric room. Brass decorations and glass ornaments faintly reflected the dim light. He passed by the crystal stand lamp and headed for the bed. On the nightstand was a beautiful information sheet, engraved with golden flowers.
Information guide for guest lizardnim. We sincerely welcome you, our valued guest, to Flower Golden Resort, a fantastic place of rest. To help ensure your comfortable and pleasant experience, we have prepared a simple resort information guide. We hope you enjoy all the delights this resort has to offer.
Beneath that was item number 1, which could be summed up as a request to be polite and respectful. And then, Lee Jae-hyun's gaze drifted downward.
On the information sheet, a second item was being added in real time. 2. For the peaceful rest of all guests, all disruptive behavior is prohibited within the resort.
Someone knocked on the door. Without hesitation, Lee Jae-hyun set the paper down and walked to the door. The knocking didn't stop, coming more and more rapidly. He opened the door without a second thought. If Kim Soleum was here to witness it, he might have torn all his hair out, wondering if he should have included ignore all requests to open the door as a rule. But Lee Jae-hyun was unperturbed, and the person standing outside his room was
Good evening, sir.
the employee wearing the bison mask. Though his shift was over, and he'd changed out of his uniform and back into a suit, the gold bow tie was still tucked into the breast pocket of his jacket. He glanced nervously and anxiously down the hallway, but quickly spoke up again.
Sorry for the sudden visit, Section Chief. The reason I came is,
With a look of determination, he raised his head.
would you consider working at this resort? We need more staff.
Lee Jae-hyun stared at him with his vertical pupils.
I'd like to work at this resort.
The yellow mascot, who had been carrying welcome gifts, dropped them all onto the floor with a crash. A lizard becoming a theme park employee. Kim Soleum stared blankly at Section Chief Lee Jae-hyun, who had, instead of suddenly checking out this morning, firmly expressed a desire to be hired. And in a flash, he finished signing the employment contract. Section Chief Lee Jae-hyun, now wearing the uniform, really, truly. With that lizard appearance, he genuinely looked the part of a theme park employee, naturally assigned to security. Section Chief Lee Jae-hyun ended up working near the main entrance. By the way, standing next to him, Jang Hee-won was staring awkwardly at the suite room voucher in his hand. That's right. I'd already heard it was all Jang Hee-won's doing.
To tell you the truth, last night I went to see Section Chief Lizard and asked him for help. We're short on staff at the resort, and we can't leave.
And so Jang Ha-woon was promoted to HR manager. So it was a multi-level promotion structure? But since everyone was just trying to get through and escape, nobody cared, however. Kim Soleum couldn't shake a faint sense of dissonance. That more staff were needed to escape the resort, I mean.
Huh? Oh, well, it just seemed natural. I figured since we needed 3 employees to run the resort and get a stamp, the next requirement would be similar. That is, that we'd need more manpower.
It was quite the deduction, but the strange feeling lingered, so Kim Soleum decided to remember it. Anyway, it's a good thing. If it's Section Chief Lee Jae-hyun, it's not strange for a human being with such values, well, alien, but still, to step in for the sake of everyone's survival. Just like that, they were a step closer to escaping. Oh, however, there was someone watching this with growing anxiety. Ladybug's eyes darted around. Now that a manual had appeared for dealing with the crazy room service requests, making the job a little more doable, he started plotting something else. Standing out in a ghost story is always dangerous, but falling behind and getting left out of successes is also a direct survival problem. He looked at Jang Hae-woon in the bison mask and barely held back a curse.
Isn't he just trying to save only himself?
Ghost stories where only those who meet some bizarre criteria survive are practically a cliché. In the end, he convinced the weasel-masked employee who'd come during checkout time, through lies and veiled threats, to sign an employment contract.
If you don't become staff, you can't leave. That's why Section Chief Lizard is working here, too.
Terrified, the weasel-masked employee, on the verge of panic, approached the mascot. Ladybug was secretly hoping he'd be promoted too, but the yellow mascot simply told employee Weasel he could leave.
Does that mean I'm useless?
Still, since Weasel managed to get hired by clinging on, he was somewhat satisfied. Looks like we have another guinea pig. The standard mascot suddenly appeared and began installing something in the center of the lobby. A giant capsule machine had appeared in the middle of the lobby. For a moment, Ladybug forgot to say anything, and just stared blankly at the dazzling, glittering glass ornament that looked like a gigantic Christmas tree.
And what is this, even?
Welcome gift capsule draw. Meet wonderful items to enhance your relaxation.
Inside, like a giant snow globe, it was filled with wrapped presents. Guests could press a button to draw a gift from inside. Inside the yellow mascot suit, Kim Soleum watched with satisfaction. Gacha never fails to trigger dopamine. Incidentally, the special gifts were wrapped in gold, and if you drew one, your room was upgraded to the top-floor suite. And besides, there weren't any blanks. Every prize was a good one, so there's no way people wouldn't like it. Ha ha ha. Take this and just have a nice quiet stay in your rooms, please. The yellow mascot threw out bribes like confetti in all directions.
Oh my, it's so sparkly. I love sparkly things. Can I draw one?
And that wasn't the end. For each guest, for whatever reason, room upgrades were being handed out. Truly a giveaway-style operation. Ladybug looked at the mascot in confusion and bewilderment.
Is this a ploy to charm guests and pressure them into lingering at the theme park, to raise its own status as the resort's owner?
Kim Soleum, who was running this as a variety show-style board game, betting all the coins on escape, looked at the guests with satisfaction. Incidentally, starting today, there was even a sign on the lobby's glass door. A space for tranquil rest. It seemed to work, as some problem guests were getting screened out right at the entrance. The yellow mascot let out a sigh of relief, picturing a pretty decent future. It felt like they were finally getting a handle on how to run the resort on day 2. But just before closing that day, an unexpected incident began to unfold. I looked at the prospective staff in front of me. No, at a hopeful guest who had run out of money. The person, whose eyes were sunken but who still looked human, anxiously rummaged through their pockets, then began to sob.
I don't have any money.
I held out my hand in welcome and spoke kindly. I could only hope that they'd hurry up and leave the park before business hours were over. I clicked my tongue and looked at my front paw. Recruiting even one last person, it's hard. Failed to hire in lieu of lodging fee. Still, I figured if I kept at it, at least one more person would get roped in. How much longer will it take? I was starting to feel a little anxious at how much time it was taking, but I suppressed it. This isn't the time to panic in fear. I am a mascot right now.
See you again next time.
It's closing time again. Theme park operations have ended. The last guests rushed in through the doors, and the standard mascots began to prepare to close, lining up on both sides. Section Chief Lee Jae-hyun was apparently still being trained, as the standard mascot wielding the baton had him standing behind, giving instructions. The chief as a rookie. As I was thinking about how it was a rather amusing sight, at that moment, someone forcefully pushed through the glass doors and appeared in the lobby.
Gasps and struggles not to throw up.
I also at first thought it was a monster, a lump of flesh with human arms sprouting in place of its own. But on closer inspection, it was a small person dragging 2 others along by each hand. You could have called it a gruesome sight, if what they were holding in both arms hadn't been corpses, with every limb broken and head smashed, dragged along like trash. Harvest Mouse, who had been cleaning, clapped a hand over his mouth. This was pure fear, not of the supernatural, but a primal terror for survival. Leaving 2 thick trails of blood behind, it barreled through the other guests and approached the front desk at terrifying speed. You shouldn't cut in line. Isn't that quite rude? And what reason is there for blatantly dirtying the floor like that? If they'd left the corpses in the lobby or asked the standard mascots, they would have been courteously ushered. How lacking in class. This does not suit our resort. The standard mascots and I all stared at it together. However, this odd and sudden displeasure vanished the moment our eyes met at the front desk. The small, blood-soaked figure, gasping for breath, looked up at me at the front desk. It was Supervisor Lee Seong-gae of the elite team. Why are you here? Weren't you supposed to have left yesterday? Why are you still here, and more than that, how did you even survive the night? In the closed theme park, dragging 2 dead bodies behind you. I managed to get a good look again at the horrifying bodies in Lee Seong-gae's hands. They were the teammates who, like Lee Seong-gae, had drawn the red piece. A chill ran down my spine. They died, so she had to carry them. If you let physical distance grow, you get strangled to death. It felt strange somehow, but as a mascot, I responded with polite service. Supervisor Lee Seong-gae dropped the corpses on the floor and held out to me a small, blood-stained golden object.
How about this?
Probably something that used to be a decorative item, now broken up. If it were the old me, I would have gladly accepted it, thinking what a windfall this was when funds were tight. But as a mascot, I can't do that. Hoo-hoo. I took out a plastic coin, a cheerful coin, from under the desk and showed it, but Supervisor Lee Seong-gae didn't react. Of course, it looked like she didn't have any coins. Want to work? Maybe it'll work this time. I nervously watched her mouth. Lee Seong-gae opened her mouth.
But both of my legs are fractured, so is it okay if I do a desk job?
How can you say that so cheerfully? Now that I look, she probably cut the line because she could barely move. not out of any awareness of others. In any case, she really needs to rest for now. I'll ask for the details tomorrow. I quickly handed over the employment contract, and Lee Songhai carefully read through it.
But there's no salary clause?
Right. From an employee's perspective, that's the most important part.